did the high priests here at the temple in Jerusalem hide their most sacred items before the city was sacked by the Romans? Is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls actually a treasure map detailing these hidden caches? And are there more great discoveries to be made here in this ancient city?
We don't know much about Solomon himself, but we know a lot more about the treasure.
The main thing in the first temple of Jerusalem, this is the one going right back to King Solomon's time, was the Ark of the Covenant.
If you know that the Babylonians are hammering at the gates of the city, they want to come in and they want to pillage and rape and destroy, that you're going to hide it away somewhere.
I think there could well be 2, 3, 4 more stashes of treasure down there in those caves under the Dome of the Rock.
According to accounts from the time, the Temple of Solomon contained some of the greatest treasure of the ancient world. The giant candelabra, the menorah, the table of shewbread, and even the Ark of the Covenant itself.
The Ark of the Covenant was well worth having, according to the Old Testament, because it had this mysterious power. It was actually a weapon of mass destruction. It actually could knock out whole armies, according to the Old Testament. So it had this legendary power. So it was worth having. You know, it was worth having for King Solomon and anybody else who could lay their hands on it. It would have been sought after.
Treasure of Solomon was a treasure of a king who embodied the most incredible relics in history. You're talking the Ark of the Covenant, the menorah, other relics from antiquity, and chalices that may have very well ended up as having been the Holy Grail.
These were just some of the famous pieces. There are also thousands of smaller sacred objects, jewels, and case upon case of gold coins. So what happened to it? Well, this city was attacked and looted several times, most brutally in 70 AD, when the Roman general Titus pretty much leveled Jerusalem to the ground.
If we can imagine the scene and try to imagine the feelings and the hearts and minds of the priests, the Romans are at the door, and they are in a particularly bloody-minded mood, having had all the problems they've had in this province. So what are the priests going to do? I can almost picture them as we talk about them. And normally figures of great dignity and solemnity, they are now picking up the ornaments from the temple, the treasures that they would normally bow to and venerate. These are now being scooped up like a scrap metal merchant gathers his merchandise, and they are putting them in pockets, in holders on the side of the robes, and going down into that labyrinth. And we have to think of just how intricate the labyrinth is. It is a honeycomb of secret hiding places. And these, shall we say, not the most athletic of men, because you're normally of mature years before you become the high priest. And there they are, ferreting their way through these tunnels, looking for places in which the wealth can be stored, so that above all, the Romans won't find it.
Historians believe that the treasure was taken back to Rome. That was until the 1950s, when a discovery changed everything. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the hills of Qumran, just a short journey outside Jerusalem, they revealed much about the daily life in the temple at the time. One scroll in particular caught the academic's eye. It was a list of secret treasure caches across the city where the temple priests had hidden their most precious items in anticipation of the Roman invasion. And this threw an entirely new light on what might still be hidden under Jerusalem.
It will sort of say, in such and such a valley, next to a building, there is a cistern, and if you walk a couple of paces in that direction, at that spot, there are sort of 12 talents of silver or something like that. And, you know, it's too vague. You can't really sort of find this treasure. So it means, in my opinion anyway, that it means that the people who wrote it knew exactly where these things were located.
So frustrating as a treasure map, but still evidence that the treasure was buried.
Well, in antiquity, if your city was under siege, then the first thing you think about is to protect your family and to hide away your wealth.
All that remains of the Second Temple of Solomon today is its outer wall. It's known all over the world as the most sacred prayer site for Jews, the Wailing Wall. So, is the Ark of the Covenant another secret treasure buried behind this very wall? Many people think that's a real possibility.
Solomon was fabulously wealthy by the standards of his time, and we all know the various tales of Solomon's mines that brought back so much gold. Solomon was also supposed to have had access to jewels, to diamonds, and to all sorts of other precious stones. Now, if those stones were put carefully away in this secret hiding place under the temple at Jerusalem, under Solomon's palace at Jerusalem, there could well be 2, 3, 4 more stashes of treasure down there in those caves under the Dome of the Rock.
There's a few ideas about what may have happened to these treasures, because for one thing, they'd have known they were going to be invaded. They'd have known that they'd have an army on their borders heading towards them. So there's a possibility that they would have made duplicates or made copies and then hidden the real treasure, so that these items would have stayed. And certainly the Ark of the Covenant seems to linger for quite a while in Jerusalem before it disappears from the Bible.
When the ancients wrote their treasure maps, they were really quite explicit. They would say, in the second door beneath the third step, we have put this much in silver. So it wasn't meant to be an exceptionally difficult treasure or spot to find it. They wanted someone to find it, but only somebody who knew about it. So what we find today is that people are just stumbling across this stuff in their daily lives, in their garden, in the extra wing they're adding to their house. They're finding relics that have been there for 2,000 years.
The possibility of some of the greatest treasures of antiquity still being buried under the old city has attracted archaeologists and adventurers for centuries. One of them, Shimon Gibson, has spent decades exploring the hidden tunnels, nooks and crannies of Jerusalem in the pursuit of unlocking its past.
30 or 40. You have two treasures, really. You have the Solomonic treasure, and you have the Roman period treasure, or let's say the treasure from the time of Jesus, yes, which is then taken away as spoils to Jerusalem. So the first treasure, we really don't know where it's located. I mean, it's a possibility. I would think it's quite logical that if you know that the Babylonians are hammering at the doors of the city, the gates of the city, they want to come in and they want to pillage and rape and destroy, that you're going to hide it away somewhere. And that means that one has to think about subterranean spaces beneath Jerusalem. This is where you hid things. If you had an enormous amount of money, if you had some treasure, you would find some subterranean space and you would hide it there.
Shimon, you've written a book about this network of tunnels that exist beneath Temple Mount.
Yes, there's something like 45 subterranean spaces and channels and cisterns beneath the Temple Mount. Most of them are, or all of them actually, are inaccessible for Westerners ever since the beginning of the 20th century, when the last of the Westerns or the travellers and explorers went in. So really, there's a labyrinth, a kind of sort of warren of all of these tunnels and chambers and cisterns beneath the Temple Mount.
Is there any way that you could take me down there to explore those?
What we could do, we could actually go to a tunnel which is situated to the north of the Temple Mount, and it leads towards the Temple Mount. So I think you and I should go and search for this tunnel, have a look at it, and see if we can find it, and see if we can crawl through this tunnel. Maybe we'll reach the Temple Mount. Let's check that out.
The truth is, much of the treasure from the old temples has been dug up and sold by serious dealers here in the city. Everything from simple pottery cups to more elaborate items like jewellery, silver, coins and even weapons. Now, much of what's sold here is fake, but if you look carefully enough and with a bit of luck, you can find items that are possibly 2, maybe even 3,000 years old. If you really want to see the good stuff, then you need to visit one of the major antique dealers in Jerusalem. They're the people who the tomb raiders and relic hunters take their prized finds to first. And I've been told that Chada Beidun is one of the best dealers in town.
Chada.
Hi.
Hi. Jamie.
Chada Beidun, nice meeting you.
How are you?
Fine.
You have a wonderful shop here.
Most welcome. You want to visit?
Please, yeah, thank you. Wow, this is amazing. So I'm after some treasures from Solomon's time. Do you have something like that?
I will show you something from that time, yeah. It's old.
So how old is this?
Solomon time.
Yeah?
King Solomon time.
So this is what, 2,500 years old?
2,700 years.
Wow.
And then I have a helmet, yeah.
Oh, okay. This is from a similar, same era?
Same period.
Okay, so who would have worn one of these?
This is for ceremony they use it, but not for fight.
So what is this? What is this made of?
Bronze.
This is
made
bronze?
of bronze, yeah.
Okay, and the sword as well?
The eye here, the glass. See the eye?
Yeah.
It's glass.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And the sword here, that would have been used?
Also bronze.
This is bronze.
That's for fighting.
Right. Okay. And how much does this cost? How much would this cost me?
This will cost 7,500.
7,500 shekels. Dollars?
Yeah.
Really? Is that your best price?
My best.
Really?
Yeah.
You can do better than that.
Something sweet your deal as a gift.
Right. Oh, okay.
I can give you a coin.
Okay, that's amazing. Can I put that there? Look.
Yeah.
So, if I was to go to one of these antiquities dealers' shops, what kind of things do you think I could find?
Well, if you went to an antiquity shop in the old city, they would first suss you out to see whether or not you're somebody who has some means, you know, of paying for certain things. There's no point in showing you a Dead Sea Scroll if all you can buy is a fragment of an oil lamp. So they're going to sort of suss it out and then suss you out. And then if they deem you worthy, then they will take you to the back rooms. And then if they deem you even more worthy than that, they'll show you. They have sometimes these hidden panels. And behind these hidden panels, they're almost like sort of James Bond, you know. They open up and they have these sort of steps going down or steps going up to these hidden rooms behind where their treasures are kept.
I will show you a coin from the second temple.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
King Solomon from the first temple.
Sure, yeah, okay.
This is the second temple coin, the silver shekel.
Wow.
So, silver coin.
That is amazing. And is this worth a lot of money?
It worth a lot of money, yes,
Sure.
because it's silver.
Okay.
There's such an amount of treasure that has been hidden in places that are probably common. That's the best place to hide something. And people are finding this, and they give it to authorities. They don't get any money, so they want to sell it. It's very much a black market, but it exists, and you don't have to look very hard to find it.
And is there a lot of treasure underneath Jerusalem?
Treasure is possible, of course. Some places which it was not discovered.
What, like in old tunnels or caves?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you what I have here.
Wow, okay.
That's for serious collector.
Okay. Wow. This is amazing. So you don't bring just anyone in here. This is your
This is for a serious collector whom they are collecting these items for many years. Many years.
And these have all come up from down in the ground?
Excavation underground.
From excavation.
Tombs and underground.
Right.
Treasures are extremely expensive, and I don't think you can walk into an antiquities shop in Jerusalem and say, "Show me your treasures, I'm willing to buy," you know.
But we can
It's not gonna
try.
happen. You can try.
Give it a go.
You
Who
can
knows?
try. Yeah.
We might find a menorah in a back room somewhere.
You can always try.
Here is a bowl.
All right, okay.
It's from 3,000 years.
This is 3,000
Use it
years
for
old.
drinking the wine.
It's in amazingly good condition.
Yes, it's not broken, it's one piece.
3,000 years old.
Yeah.
And this was found where, do we know?
It was found in the south.
Right, okay. So, but underneath the city?
Underneath, yeah.
Because there's a whole network of caves and...
Tombs, yeah.
And what would this have been used for?
You put the wine here and then drink it through the mouth.
This is a wine cup?
Yeah, wine.
What, like this?
they put the hand here,
Right.
and then when they turn the hand up,
Okay.
the air go through it, and then the wine come out.
That is amazing. Look at the colour in it as well. And how much would this be worth?
$4,500.
$4,500. Wow.
By law, Israeli law, you can sell antiquities. And you have shops which cater to those who would like to buy objects and antiquities, lamps and bowls and all sorts of sculptures and so forth. You also have another Israeli law which forbids illegal excavations. So one law is in opposition to the other. So there's a bit of a problem there. As a result of that, you get this loophole, and things are illegally excavated, including treasures. Some of them are mundane objects. The mundane objects turn up in the shops, which are in the old city of Jerusalem and elsewhere, and tourists passing by can pick up an object and they get a certificate and they can take it back to their country of origin. But the treasures usually are hidden away. They're not accessible, and they're then smuggled out of the country, and then they turn up in different collections all over the world.
As he promised, Shimon had arranged for me to visit one of the main tunnel sites under the old city that lead towards the Second Temple of Solomon. It's known as Zedekiah's Cave.
So, Shimon, are there people still digging in the caves today?
Well, the cave of Zedekiah was explored back in the 19th century and early 20th centuries, and then it was sort of a bit quiet until very recently. A group relating to Ron Wyatt has been doing excavations there.
Was he the guy who tried to find the Ark?
Exactly, yes. Back in the early 1970s, he was crawling through a tunnel which was very close to the cave of Zedekiah, and he claimed that he found the Ark of the Covenant and various other temple treasures. Took photographs. Unfortunately, the photographs he took were blurred, and the other unfortunate side of it all is that we really don't know the exact location where he was. And the cave we're going to go and see now, the cave of Zedekiah, is one of these ideal locations because it's an enormous subterranean space. It extends under a substantial part of an ancient city, and it's so large that you can even get lost inside. I've got lost inside on a number of occasions, but luckily I've got a map, and one can sort of find your way out of it. So these are the walls which were built by Solomon the Magnificent, and we're actually going to enter into the cave, which extends under the old city of Jerusalem, so it's really quite exciting.
So there's a whole network.
It's reported that Herod the Great used stone from Zedekiah's cave to build the Second Temple of Solomon, including its outer walls, and there are rumours that over the years, tomb raiders and relic smugglers have used secret passages leading off from this cave to gain access to the remains of the temple itself.
Amazing, isn't it?
Unbelievable. What's down through here?
Well, this is an area which isn't open to the tourists who come to visit the cave.
Okay.
Let's go and explore.
Okay.
It really is like another world down here. It's hard to imagine that the bustling city of Jerusalem is literally just above our heads, as Shimon led me deeper into the tunnels.
Have a look over here. It's really amazing. These caverns then open up into a very larger space, and you can see the blocks of stone which are extracted from the floor as well as from the walls. Yeah. And you get these deep pits here which are full of rubble. But if we were to extract this rubble, this would lead down to lower chambers. So you have at least 2 or perhaps 3 layers of rooms and caverns at different levels, extending down deep into the ground. Jamie, I want to show you something really quite nice. Here, look. Look at all the graffiti here. 1869. Do you see? And then another one down here, 1874. And here you could see the symbol of the Freemason. He was a Freemason, clearly, this Richardson who had made this graffiti. But you have names here of many different people who visited the cave, including key figures in the history of Jerusalem. You know, American consuls and all sorts of people came in and left their marks on the wall. Now, I wanted to take you over here, show you this lower chamber.
Okay.
This is a shaft which leads down into the lower level of caves. And then within this lower level of caves, there's yet a deeper level of caves. So you can go down from one level to another. It really is very exciting.
We can go down here?
Yes, let's go down. Zedekiah's Cave used to be known as Solomon's Quarries. It's an enormous cave which extends under the old city of Jerusalem, and it goes on for hundreds of meters beneath the city. And it's at that location that there's a possibility that treasure might one day be found should one start excavating all the fills inside. It is a bit of a mission impossible because there's so much stone debris inside that it would probably take you about 1,000 years to dig it all out. And so, you know, as an archaeologist, I don't have that enough time to do so. But that is a potential place for hiding away treasure.
Wow.
You see this wire and this string here? This is so that if anybody gets lost in this lower cavern area, then they just simply follow the string.
Find their way
and they
back.
can find their way out. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna hold on to that. Okay, let's go.
Okay. Invasion of cockroaches here.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Now, look at this. These are the tunnels which lead off in the direction of the Temple Mount. And as you can see, they're just full of soil and rubble, so we don't know their full extent. I crawled along for about 30 or 40 meters due southeast towards the Temple Mount, and I'm sure if one extracted all of this fill, then one would be able to reach the Temple Mount itself.
Just can I have a look at the map here? Yeah. Are there people still digging for treasure under Temple Mount?
Archaeologists are always digging in Jerusalem. They're really interested in sort of unraveling the history of the city. But you get these external groups. These are people from different parts of the world who have this yearning, this passion for finding relics of the past, including the Ark of the Covenant. And frequently I get these telephone calls from people sort of saying, I know where the Ark of the Covenant is. Can we meet and I'll show you? You know, I'm always willing to hear about these sort of possibilities. And because Jerusalem has this warren of underground caverns and chambers and tunnels, there's a possibility that somewhere, someplace, some sort of treasure will be found. Okay, so let's see, I'll move this away. Yeah, we've crawled down into that chamber there, and then we've moved along this hallway, and we're at that junction, you see, and that's the tunnel which goes off in that direction, in the direction of the Temple Mount itself.
So Temple Mount's sort of here?
Exactly.
So how far away are we from the Temple Mount now?
It's about sort of 50 to 100 meters away.
Wow.
But the problem is that when we were mapping this area, we couldn't get further simply because of the rubble. But if we were to clear away the rubble at the ends, at the extremity of this tunnel, then it would continue all the way to the temple itself. Careful your head.
We carried on deeper into the subterranean world until we finally reached the end of the tunnel that had been deliberately blocked up, possibly by tomb raiders who were covering their tracks. This was as far as we could go. Archaeologically, Jerusalem is like a layer cake of history. The deeper you go, the older it gets. And the Roman streets are still there, buried 100 feet or so under the medieval city we see today. Dr. Kate Raphael is an archaeologist who has spent years working around the Temple Mount area and knows the underground labyrinth as well as anyone. She believes that King Solomon built a vault beneath his temple to store his treasures in the event of an attack.
What was Solomon's vault?
If my behind Palm is the Holy of Holies, the actual bedrock where Isaac and the sacrifice took place. That was the Holy of Holies within the temple itself. Now, according to the source that comes much, much later, when King Solomon built the temple, he built a chamber beneath the Holy of Holies. So this is the rock, the bedrock, and he carved a room underneath so that if the temple was threatened or there was an emergency and you had to take the treasures and the ark to stash them in a safe place, you could take them directly down below the Holy of Holies. There was this room where you could put them there and hopefully nobody would ever find them until everything had calmed down. But the source, the way it had come to us, says that King Solomon had already seen into the future and he knew that his temple was not going to last forever. And he built this vault underneath with the idea that there would be, that the house of God, the temple, would be threatened.
The Wailing Wall is all that remains of the Second Temple from the time of Jesus and is world famous as the most sacred prayer site for Jews today. But what most people don't know is that the wall continues underground.
So the Wailing Wall extends into the tunnel system?
Right, the Wailing Wall is only about an eighth of the entire stretch of that western wall that was built by King Herod. So the actual site of prayer that is open to the public today is a tiny fragment. And once we enter the tunnel, we can see all the rest of it. And you can see the structure, the size, the effort, and the funds that were poured into the building of this wall. And this is only a support wall. It's not the temple itself. It's something that supports the entire platform from all the sides of it.
Kate agreed to take me down into the tunnels beneath the Wailing Wall to a spot which is about as close as you're able to get today to the Holy of Holies of the original Temple of Solomon, which housed the Ark of the Covenant and other sacred treasures.
Okay, so we're really not the first to try and solve the mystery of what happened to the treasures of the temple. And maybe this is the best place to actually tell the tale. One of the first Western explorers to actually try and solve the enigma was Warren from the Palestinian Exploration Fund. He was here in the last part of the 19th century, and he did not have the funds or the ability to dig the entire tunnel, as I'm sure he would have liked to, but he couldn't. And what he decided to do is to make 2 shafts and pray that those shafts are going to hit what he was searching for, or at least help him solve part of the story and put some of the pieces of the puzzle in their place. And that if the information about the subterranean vault that was built by King Solomon, if there is any grain of truth in it, so he may be as close as possible, and up until then possibly the only Westerner who has come that close to where the treasures of the Temple Mount were hidden.
Many Jews believe that the Ark of the Covenant and the other sacred treasures are still buried in a secure chamber somewhere beneath Temple Mount. This was evidenced in 1982 when a group of ultra-Orthodox rabbis, led by Rabbi Getz, actually tried to break through Warren's Gate to reach the Holy of Holies and what they hoped would be the last resting place of the treasures of Solomon. But alerted by their drilling, the Muslim authorities in the Al-Aqsa Mosque above reacted quickly, and the rabbis were stopped before they were able to reach any treasure and start a major conflict.
How close did Rabbi get to the
I think he was, if the chamber was actually there, he was within a few meters of it. He came 4 meters from where he thought the chamber was, and 4 meters below what was the Holy of Holies in King Solomon's temple.
So he came that close?
He came
4 meters away?
That close.
There is one Jewish archaeologist actually excavating material from Temple Mount, and his name is Professor Gabi Barkai. For well over a decade now, he's been painstakingly sifting through rubble that was thrown into the valley below by workers in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. To date, he's found close to 2 million small shards of pottery, glass and coins dating back to many millennia BC. He thinks it's very unlikely that any large Solomonic treasures will be recovered from Temple Mount.
Listen, I'm not a treasure hunter. On the other hand, I'll be very happy to find a treasure. I don't think that any treasure will be ever found in Jerusalem, because in Jerusalem's history, every generation robbed the previous ones. And they even robbed the simple stones, the stones of construction, to be reused once and again. So we do not have too much expectations. On the other hand, here and there, an archaeologist may be lucky and find something. Recently, a colleague of mine, Doron Ben-Ami, he found a hoard of 240 gold coins of Heraclius, the last Byzantine emperor who ever ruled Jerusalem. So here and there might be luck, but these are just hints to the wealth that Jerusalem once had.
Today, thousands of people volunteer to help sift through the tons of rubble from Temple Mount, carefully picking out the remnants of pottery, glass and metal, which is then handed to Gabi for analysis.
So we have here a pile of pottery fragments, and these fragments are datable. Of course, better dating is done by a piece which has a rim when it is worked, a nice rim. Or sometimes you have a piece of a Roman oil lamp, which was made in a mold. You can see the design still. Sometimes you can see a piece of a wall tile glazed with some painted pattern on it. We had until now sorted out about 2 million pieces of pottery.
Jerusalem is a fascinating place for archaeologists because something new comes up nearly every week. Shimon Gibson called me and wanted to show me an ancient water pool and sluice tunnel in the gardens of a church in the old city. It's exactly hidden inlets like these that the priests could have used to hide treasures before the Romans attacked.
So, Jamie, this is what I wanted to show you, the Bethesda pool. You can see there's some ancient steps there. Should we go down and have a look? That's the gate, but I think it's locked, isn't it? Okay, we'll have to jump across. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Go and have a look. Gotta be careful of the steps here. Now you can see the ancient steps leading down into the pool.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of water down below. Let's have a look.
Like many ancient sites in this city not open to tourists, access can be a little hairy. In this case, it was a climb down a steep metal ladder into the remains of the 1st century Bethesda water pool.
Okay, so this is the Bethesda pool, and what you can see here are the original steps, which date back 2,000 years. You have flights of steps and landings in between. That's very typical. So there's those who came into the pool could bathe here, but those who were invalids and who couldn't really master these steps they were able to be brought in on beds, and these landings then were used for that purpose.
And one of the Gospels talks about Jesus healing.
Exactly.
In a...
This is the Gospel of John, chapter 5, where there's the story of Jesus who comes into the pool and helps this invalid and cures this invalid. And there's also a reference to the murmuring on the waters. And, you know, this is unclear. Some thought maybe it was something which was added a little later into the original text. But Eusebius also talks about something very similar. He talks about the bubbling of the water and the red blood which comes to the surface. I think this is what this is all about. If you have a look down here, you see, you can see this kind of red seam here. And what happened was that the water, when it entered from the northern pool into this pool, there was a lot of churning of water as a result, and some of this red soil would get dragged into the pool itself, and it would rise to the surface and look like sort of patches of blood. So I think that's what's behind it all.
And there's a tunnel down here, is there? Somewhere?
Exactly, that's what I want to show you. So let's go and check it out. I see it's underwater. I mean, I wasn't expecting so much water here, but let's see what we can do. Oops. Yeah. This is the tunnel which extends between the two pools. There was a kind of sort of sluice system, which meant that when they wanted water from the northern pool, they would lift up the sluice gate, and then the water would come rushing into this pool, and then those who wanted to bathe here, this is for purification purposes, so they could enter into the temple, would do so. But I can see it's all sort of now sort of underwater. And at the bottom here, you see there's a kind of stone there underwater. That's the top of a tunnel which extends under our feet all the way in that direction to the temple. And that's for the surplus water. So if they had too much water, they could easily drain it away. But it's underwater, so...
Is there any way we can...
Well, we can go and have a look at the tunnel. It's at the upper tunnel.
If you grab the end of...
Yeah, I got it. Okay, let me see if I can...
Careful.
See if we can swivel it over a bit.
There we go.
That's it.
Is that safe?
It's sinking rapidly, but let's see if we can get in. I think if we... Do
you need a bit more?
Yeah, I think...
I'll lift it up a bit. It's jammed. Can you get up?
Yeah.
There you go.
That's it. Great. Okay, let's...
Whoa.
Okay, let's go in and see what we can...
Sure.
See.
You okay?
Yeah.
You in? What can we see there?
Okay, you see the tunnel. It extends all the way into the other pool, but it's impossible. It's full of soil and there's...
Well, yeah, but I'm just concerned it's going to give way any minute.
No, I think it'll be okay. Okay. It's quite strong. Okay. Do you see? There's no... It's impossible. Yeah. It's not possible to get to the
completely
other
flooded, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have to give up.
Oh, that's a shame.
That idea of getting into that tunnel.
Although Shimon had high hopes that this water channel might provide a back door to the underground remains of the temple, recent rain in the city had totally flooded the entrance, and there was just no safe way in for us. Whatever lay down this narrow passage would remain a secret a little longer.
Looking back at the old city and the Dome of the Rock, digging under it seems such a simple and enticing prospect. The reality, though, is far from that. Do you think that there is still treasure there today?
I think there is still treasure in the world that belonged to the first temple. I think that it survived. I doubt it would have been melted down. I think some of it still may be in Jerusalem. It's very hard to excavate Jerusalem. It's very hard to get permission to do any kind of historical archaeology there.
The Temple Mount is very much politicized, and as an archaeologist, I would like to have free access to such places. But on the other hand, in Jerusalem, as a result of the difficulties, there is never a dull moment. It makes life interesting.
Archaeological excavations in Jerusalem by Israelis are frowned upon simply because it is an occupied city for much of the world. As a result of all of that, international organizations, institutions that deal with archaeology are not digging here, which is a great pity.
Do you think there's still treasure buried under Jerusalem today?
I most certainly do. I think that when somebody with the wisdom of Solomon in the tradition placed a store of wealth and of objects of great power and importance in those underground caves, way down below the dome of the rock, then you hide your treasure in more than one place. And I think there could well be 2, 3, 4 more stashes of treasure down there in those caves under the dome of the rock.
Pretty much everyone agrees that there are still treasures, relics, and even important documents just waiting to be discovered. Will it ever happen? Let's hope so. See you next time.